Well, hey everybody, what's up? Pastor Matthew here. Thanks for checking into the YouTube channel. Hey, one of my most common questions that I get when people email me or message me or just comment on my videos is, how is your personal miscellanies system going? You probably know me a little bit for some of my note-taking videos. They're some of my best videos in terms of viewership and viewer interaction. And a lot of people are very, very interested in how my own personal note-taking is progressing, given that I've given so many tips about note-taking to others. Well, in this video, what I'm going to try to do is a little bit of screen share action for you, and I'm going to take you through some of the highlights of my own Bible note-taking system, including my miscellanies. I'm going to take you inside of my own miscellanies notebook and things like that. So I think this is going to be pretty cool for some of us to nerd out on. If you're not interested in this, of course, go ahead and pass this video by. But some of you, I get so many questions about how to take notes better that I figured I would just show you some of my own stuff here, and maybe you can either take some tips from me or perhaps you can do your own thing. But either way, hopefully this is going to be somewhat helpful to you. Now, I have two different kinds of notes that we're going to talk about today. The first kind of note is going to be digital notes that you're going to take on your computer. And you could take them on your phone, you could take them on your laptop, but it's going to be a lifelong catalog of information and ideas that you're going to use for your writing projects, your research if you're a researcher, your sermons and your illustrations if you're a pastor, teacher, lecturer, professor, whatever you do. This is going to be a couple of interesting ways for you to catalog, categorize, and contain all of the information that you have been learning and you're reading and otherwise. So the first thing I'm going to do is share my screen, and I'm going to show you three of my major digital notebooks. I've talked about these in the past, but I'm going to actually take you inside of them a little bit to show you what I do. And then secondly, I'm going to show a video alongside of my own little face here on this particular video. And I'm going to actually show you the inside of my own miscellanies notebook, which is right there, the orange one sitting on the back of my desk in all of my videos. Okay, so let's go ahead and first of all share my window here. Now, this is my first and most important notebook that I probably have. This is my Theology Notebook. I have for many, many years now been taking notes on systematic theology. That's my interest. If you're interested in other fields, that's fine. You can do this in other fields too, but theology is my major interest. And why not? Of course, I'm a pastor. That's what I do. I preach, I teach, I prepare sermons all the time. So I need a lot of content that I can use and save systematically by topic and in some kind of comprehensive order, so I can easily put together my sermons and my Bible lessons and things like that. So this particular notebook, I call this my Theology Notebook, and this is the first page of the notebook. And it begins with a topic, theology. Why should we study theology? And just kind of rolling through some of the content here, I give a bunch of reasons why we should study theology and how it is that we do it appropriately. I have a lot of designs. I have a lot of graphs in here. I've got some charts that go along with this. Now, all of this I've also moved over to PowerPoint so I can teach through these things too, because that's what I've been doing for several years on Wednesday nights, is just teaching through doctrine. So this particular notebook, whenever I get an idea, I source it, I quote it, I have my academic citations on the bottom of the page so I can find things again when I want to look through them. And this notebook has now grown over the years to 370 pages long. And by the time I finished the instruction through this class, it's taken me 5 years to teach through all this material, it's probably going to be about 400 pages of notes. And this is, for lack of a better term, my own authoritative notes on every theological topic. Okay, so I'm just showing you here what this particular notebook looks like. I've got some spaces for blank notes for people to take. Now you say, well, why would someone else be taking notes here? Because I've also taken all of this content and I've uploaded it right here to this particular book. This is Love God with All Your Mind, an outline of the Christian faith. This is the one book I'm going to tell you of mine not to buy. Okay, you can if you want to. It is on Amazon. But if you want to read something by me, please read Souls, How Jesus Saves Sinners, or Hold Fast the Faith, a devotional commentary on the Westminster Confession, or Holy Living, Jonathan Edwards on the 70 Resolutions. You're probably not going to want to buy this book. Why not? And why does it exist? Well, because this book is simply all of my notes on theology that I've been retaining for so many years. And so what I've done is I've put this on print on demand on Amazon Kindle CreateSpace, and that allows all of the people in my class to buy my notes so that they can take notes with me as I'm teaching the lectures. Pretty smart, huh? So if you bought this book, you'd look at it, you'd be like, what is this? This doesn't look like an ordinary book. Well, it's not. This is an outline. This is all the scripture references. This is all the citations. But in my class on Wednesday night, the people love to have that, and I give it to them for free. I just buy it for them and give it to them. And the reason I do that is so that they don't have to stress and writing down everything that's on my PowerPoints all the time. So that's another tip too. If you're a teacher, if you're a professor, why not have your students get your own stuff? If you want to buy it for them, like I tend to do, or if you want to have them buy it, little income for you, either way you want to do it. But when I'm finished with this class, again, this notebook here has 330 pages. This is not the most recent edition of my notes. Eventually, it's going to have 400 pages, and I believe I'm going to have finished teaching through all of this content by the end of this year, and it took me 5 years to put it all together. And it's actually the third time I've taught through this material, which is why it grows every single time. Okay, so this is my main theological notebook, and it is a digitally organized notebook that I do on my computer. Let's have a look at something similar. This is my philosophy notebook. Now, it's much shorter. The philosophy notebook is 47 pages long, but occasionally as I'm reading theology and or philosophy, I like to take notes so that if I ever did teach a philosophy class, I would be already ahead of the game. So again, I've kind of tended to organize this like a systematic theology, even though it's a philosophy work. I've gone in order somewhat roughly chronological by philosophers of importance, but I've also have some sections that are thematic or topically based too. So technically I don't teach a philosophy class, and I never have, and maybe I never will, but it is an area of interest to me, and so it's just something that I've tended to take notes on. Whenever I find something interesting, I just go ahead and write it down in this particular digital notebook. Here's one more digital notebook that I want you to see, and this is my digital miscellanies. Now this is one that I have alphabetized by topic. This notebook is 58 pages long, and as you can see here, I have them all ordered by the alphabet. So if I wanted to find some quotations on prayer, I would click on P, and then I would just kind of scroll down to prayer. There we go. So I have quotation. This is This is largely a quotation notebook in which if I'm reading something and I hear an awesome quotation, maybe from John Bunyan or John Calvin or Jonathan Edwards, I will source it and I'll just go ahead and plop it right down here in alphabetical order. And I always write for myself at least a little notation about where I can find that particular quotation again in the book that I found it originally. So here's one from John Calvin, The Institutes, Book 1, etc. Here's another one from John Calvin. And again, I just kind of do this by topic. So last night, I finished up the reading of the book, Grace Abounding to the Chief of Sinners by John Bunyan. I was reading it on Kindle, okay? So what I did is I made all my little highlights as I was reading that book on my phone. And as I highlighted it, then I can go to my Amazon Kindle account and I can find all my highlights, right? Pretty smart. So then I took those highlights and I just moved them over to my digital miscellanies. So this is one of my notebooks that just grows and grows and grows over time, and I'm always thankful whenever I need some neat quotes or ideas because they're always right there in this notebook. Notice I also put these little tabs here, these little bookmarks, so that wherever I'm at the end of any letter, I can jump to the letter that I want to go, and that helps me to navigate and toggle through the digital miscellanies easily enough. Okay, so these would be my three big digital notebooks. Again, my theology notebook, my philosophy notebook, and my digital miscellanies. Okay, so let's go ahead and close out that window right there. And let's just talk about a couple of advantages of having digital notebooks as opposed to physical notebooks. I'm going to show you some physical notebooks here in just a minute. But digital notebooks have the advantage of movable type, and I'm not talking about the old school movable type like in a Gutenberg printing press. I'm talking about the fact that you can insert an idea and just shove everything up or down. You can't do that on paper. On paper, you have to make other kinds of notations so that you can hop from page to page. But the advantage of doing digital miscellanies, easy for me to say, is that you can do something like an alphabetical construct here, as you see here, because anytime I get a quotation, let's just say it's means of grace, and I want to put it between materialism and membership, I can just do that. I can just shove a new thing in and everything goes either up or down. So that's the advantage of digital content. The other thing, obviously, is that whenever you have your phone with you, then you already have your notebooks with you. I can easily put new items right in there because I've just got them on my Google Files, and I have them starred for the notebooks that I use all the time. Okay, so there's some real advantages to doing things digitally, and to a large extent, I highly recommend that. Now, let's go on and look at some physical notebooks here, and I'm just going to run a little video aside my own face, and I'll move over to the side here. So the first one that we're looking at, this is my blank Bible. Okay, this is a physical Bible that I have, and it's actually modeled on the blank Bible of Jonathan Edwards, who of course is my great study hero. I've been trying to imitate a lot of what Jonathan Edwards has done as far as his own information keeping and organizing. Edwards really was the master when it came to keeping and organizing information, and one of his main tools was the blank Bible that he received as a gift from his brother-in-law, Benjamin Pierpont. I think it was about 1730. He didn't have it quite early on, but he got it after he had already become the pastor of the Northampton Church. It was a specially made Bible in which there was a blank page interspersed between every other page of the text. And so Jonathan Edwards used that as one of his primary sources for tracking biblical comments and information. He would often add some of his own original thoughts, and he would also use quotations from other sources that he was reading. Okay, so his was kind of a 1 in a million book that actually had the Bible interspersed with blank notebook paper so he could take notes on the opposing page, just like you can see here that I've done. But thankfully, there are a number of these out there now in publication that you can actually get something like this. I know this one is for the ESV. It's done by Crossway. It's called their Interleaved Bible. But there's a bunch of other copycats out there by other publishers. There's some on the King James Version as well. So if you're into the King James, don't hate me on this channel because I use the ESV. But you can find this for the KJV and other translations as well, though not every possible translation has something like this. So this has been a very, very helpful tool for me over the years because, again, what I'm doing is I'm writing some of my best observations on any given biblical passage right on the opposing side because this one has so much blank space. If you're looking for blank space by sheer volume, then your interleaved edition is going to be the most accessible for you to take voluminous notes. Here we're looking at some of my notes from the book of Revelation. I tried to intentionally flip through some of the pages where I have the most notations, and I had this very handsomely rebound by Rustic Leatherworks. My friend Michael did that for me. He did an amazing job. It would be expensive to rebind something like this because this is probably about a $300 rebind he did for me, but little advertising for free for him. All right, now let's go on to the next one, which is my actual Miscellanies notebook. This is a large leather-bound journal that I actually bought at Barnes & Noble. So unfortunately, I can't provide you an Amazon link for that. I don't even know if they make this anymore. But at the time, I was looking for a great volume, a handsome volume, large enough to contain my miscellanies. What we're looking at here is the table of contents. And if you're going to do this, you do have to reserve a number of pages for your table of contents. People have asked me how much space do you have to reserve? Well, I would say count up the pages in the notebook and at least give yourself that many lines for the sake of the table of contents. So you can see I've got about 120 something miscellanies already, and these are other blank pages here for the table of contents as it's going to grow. Okay, so what does a miscellany look like? Well, it usually has a numbered entry on the top. You can see that's M001. And I usually put the title of the miscellany and then the scripture verse that it corresponds to. That's the same information, by the way, that I want to have on my table of contents so that it's self-referential. I want my table of contents to list the miscellany number as well as the topic and, again, the scripture verse in the table of contents so I can more easily source these things a little bit later, because from time to time you do tend to forget which miscellany goes with which number and things like that. The advantage to doing this, of course, is that you can continue to add notebooks. So like your digital miscellanies, you can do this ad infinitum. You just need more notebooks. And so just kind of flipping through some of my topics here, you can see that some of my miscellanies require a lot of thought, multiple pages at a time. Others of them are about 2/3 of the way down the page. I do have some designs and some things like that as I'm sketching out ideas that I want to use. And typically, I have to decide whether or not a piece of information is going to go in one of my digital notebooks or whether it's going to go in my miscellanies. And I don't really have a hard and fast rule for why I put certain things in my written notebooks and other things in my digital notebooks. Sometimes I just kind of make that decision on the fly. You know, if I have a thought and I'm pretty sure I'm not going to teach that, and I wouldn't necessarily teach it instructionally in a class, maybe it's just for myself, then I'll probably put it in my my physical form miscellaneous notebook. If it's something that I know for a fact is going to correspond really nicely with one of my lectures or one of my classes that I'm teaching, then I'll probably go ahead and put that in my theology digital notebook, where it would go in order of that particular topic. Okay, so as I'm writing my miscellanies, there's all kinds of things I keep track of. I take notes on books, for instance. I have a whole section of different dystopias that I that I like to read. I've got some miscellanies on 1984 and Brave New World and Fahrenheit 451 and things like that. I also have some kind of interfaith dialogue miscellanies. You saw a couple pages back there. I had kind of a Venn diagram comparing Protestantism versus Catholicism. Sometimes I'll put in charts. Sometimes I will put in just kind of information that adds up as it goes. But I love my miscellaneous notebook, and I'm so glad I started it years ago. Okay, now finally, the last one we're going to look at here, this is actually just my Bible. This is my wide margin Bible. It's an heirloom wide margin reference Bible by Crossway. I used to use, of course, the Cambridge wide margin, the Aquila, or as I called it, the Eagle, but I've since moved over a couple of years ago, actually about the time I came to Gospel Fellowship, to the Crossway edition. The reason is because my Cambridge was just kind of filled up with notes, and I wanted to start afresh when I started a new pastoral call here at Gospel Fellowship. So I actually like the layout of this one better because the text is a little bit bigger and the margins are more equal on the inner and outer margins. But I like the Cambridge better in terms of the paper, and that's one thing, you know, there's a little bit of give and take. This paper is thinner, whereas the Cambridge wide margin is thicker, but the words are smaller. So pick your poison, right? So I do all kinds of things here. You can see a little list there in the bottom of that corner. I also make a lot of notations and references to my other notebooks. So very often in my Bible, what you're going to see is a reference to a miscellany. So I'll put M001 in scriptures that correspond to that particular miscellany. And I'll also put some of my digital miscellany cues and things like that. I'll maybe make a notation over to my philosophy notebook or something like that. But my Bible, my wide margin kind of becomes a catch-all where I just put all sorts of references to the other works. So these are the big three right here: my wide margin, my miscellanies journal, and my blank Bible. My most important stuff. All right. Well, that's pretty much it. That's the updates. 120 something written miscellanies, handwritten miscellanies. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering, I did a little calculation on my wide margin just for fun. I wanted to know how many notes I'd taken in my wide margin Bible. Well, what do you do that? Just sit there and count them up? No. What I did was I searched in Google and I said, give me 10 random numbers between 1 and 1,300, which is the number of pages in the Bible. So it gave me 10 random numbers. And then I took those 10 random numbers and looked at those pages, counted up the notes, and averaged them. Okay, does that make sense? So just a sampling of 10 pages of my Bible chosen at random. That's the idea. And I concluded that my wide margin Bible has about 8,000 notes in it. And that's because I take notes in it every single day. So that's just a little piece of trivia for you. Okay. Well, hopefully you found that interesting little update on my miscellaneous system. Thank you so much for asking, for all of you out there who care. I do love you lots, and I will talk to you later. Have a great day.